So today we're going to talk about the endocrine system, how it works, what it does. Talk about some examples of various glands and hormones. But to begin with, the endocrine system is our body's, it's one of the ways our cells can communicate with each other. So as different parts of our bodies communicate. The nervous system, though, works quickly. So nerve impulses travel using electrical and chemical signals, but they happen very quickly. The endocrine system works a little bit more slowly, but still allows our body to regulate various things. So the endocrine system is a system of glands that produce hormones. And these hormones are just chemicals in the blood that are transported around in our bloodstream, and they have effects on different types of tissue in our body.
I can't see that now.
So a hormone, like we just said, hormone, the word itself means to excite. And that's because they cause some action to happen somewhere in the body. Hormones have effects. They're produced in one place and then have effects in other parts of the body. Okay, so they're chemical messengers that cause things to happen. And we have dozens of different hormones in our bodies that regulate various things. I'll talk about a few examples, but the levels of these hormones, they change. They go up and down depending on certain conditions, depending on what needs there are. And so they're controlled by something we call a feedback system. And the feedback system turns these glands on or off. You could think of the endocrine system as a thermostat's a good analogy. So this thermostat, you have one in your house, we have one in this room, obviously. In this thermostat, what does it monitor?
How high is it? The heat.
The temperature of the room. Okay. So this is like an endocrine gland. They monitor the levels of various hormones. Now this thermostat monitors the temperature in the room. When the temperature in the room drops below its setting, let's say it's set at 70 degrees. If the temperature in the room drops, this thermostat's keeping track of that, and then what does it do?
Turns the heat off.
Right. Now does heat come out of this thermostat?
No, it comes out the
No. It sends a signal using electricity. It sends a signal to the heater in the back of the room, and it tells it to turn on. And so the heater comes on, the temperature of the room will increase. Once it gets to the proper level, and the thermostat's monitoring that, what does the thermostat do then? Sends another signal telling the heater to turn off. So the thermostat keeps the temperature in this room constant, but not by producing heat, but by controlling something else that does produce heat. And that's how endocrine glands work. They monitor different factors on or off to produce these hormones that can regulate those things. They work in a similar way. And this helps to maintain homeostasis, which is keeping constant conditions. Tyler?
About the
thermostat? Yeah.
is there like a wire connected to it?
Yeah, there's a wire that goes up and through the ceiling and connects to that heater, and that's how it sends the message, right? And so we have a variety of glands in our body, which are endocrine glands that produce hormones. Things like the thyroid gland, the pituitary gland, the adrenal glands, ovaries, testes, pancreas. Those are all examples of endocrine glands, and each of those produces different hormones that controls different things. So the way this endocrine system works is it makes hormones. Hormone is just a chemical, often a protein, that's made in one of these glands They're secreted into the bloodstream. They circulate in our blood. And they reach all the tissues of our body, and they have different effects. They excite various activities in our body that allows us to regulate how our body works. Okay?
Giantism.
I don't know, just where it is. I don't know. I don't know where the name thyroid came from. Olivia?
Is it, I heard that like my mom could talk to her
Well, we'll talk about it. We're going to get to thyroid in a minute. Remind me in a minute.
Hey, go to the left.
All right, so we're going to talk about a few different glands. We won't go through every endocrine gland, but we'll talk about a few. We'll talk about some examples to illustrate how our endocrine system works. Well, one of the most important endocrine glands is the pituitary gland. Okay? It's often called the master gland because it produces hormones that control many of the other endocrine glands. So the pituitary gland, for example, produces hormones that control the thyroid gland, which produces its own hormones. And the pituitary gland, it's at the base of our brain. It's attached to our brain. It's way up in sort of the middle of your head, at the base of your brain. And it's just this tiny little thing. It's about the size of a pea. But it produces a whole series of important hormones that we need in order to function. So you can see this is the pituitary gland, this little thing right up there. One of the hormones it produces is one you may have heard of, called human growth hormone, where it's abbreviated HGH. Secretes. It just secretes means makes or produces. So the pituitary gland secretes this human growth hormone. And right now, for you guys, you probably have an abundance of human growth hormone in your blood. At your age, your body, your pituitary gland is producing a lot of this because this is the time when you're growing. And the effects of human growth hormone, so it's made by the pituitary gland, gets secreted into blood, it's circulating all throughout your body. And this is a hormone, for example, when human growth hormone gets to cells in your bones, it causes them to elongate. It causes new cells to form in your bones at the growth plates, causing your bones to lengthen. And that's how you get taller. It also helps increase muscle mass and other things as well. It's also, you may have heard of human growth hormone in the news in the last couple of years. Anybody know why?
Spreading.
No.
The season.
Okay, they're testing. Who would they be testing for human growth hormone?
Children. Little children.
No.
Older men.
Old people.
No.
Older.
Athletes.
Oh, so.
Really?
Because human growth hormone is a considered a performance-enhancing drug. It's a banned substance in sports. Sometimes athletes may take human growth hormone to increase their muscle mass, or they inject themselves with it. Yes, but excess human growth hormone can cause somebody to cause somebody to increase their muscle mass, sometimes to recover from an injury they may use it, but it's a banned substance. It's considered in the same class as steroids, and we'll talk about that as well. But human growth hormone, and a lot of these endocrine glands, there could be disorders in which too little, for human growth hormone, if a person is born and their body produces too little human growth hormone, that could lead to what's called dwarfism, which is when a person does not grow to a normal average height. Okay? And it's because the human growth hormone is not produced enough, and so those bones don't elongate as they normally should. So if doctors know about this in childhood, they could give somebody artificial human growth hormone to try to encourage their growth to a normal height, but they have to catch that ahead of time. There's also many other reasons for dwarfism as well, not just the lack of human growth hormone. The opposite condition is also possible, where a person produces too much human growth hormone and grows to an abnormally tall And so this kid, for example, he's 12 years old, he's 6 foot 5 inches. And that's human growth hormone. This guy is the tallest human ever recorded. He lived in the 1920s and 30s, and he died, I think, in 1936 or somewhere in that term. He had a disease in which sometimes if a person has a tumor on their pituitary gland produces excess human growth hormone, and it doesn't stop. Normally when you get to 16, 17, 18, you stop growing because your pituitary gland stops producing all of that human growth hormone.
How old was that guy?
That guy was 8 feet 11 inches tall.
That's crazy.
He never stopped growing throughout his whole, even as he was 22. He died young at age 22, but he never stopped growing in that time. And so it was because of this is his father. He was taller than his father. This guy, he was my height in kindergarten. Okay, he was 5 feet 10 inches tall in kindergarten. He was taller than his father by first grade. And he was so tall, though, that his joints could not support his weight and those bones. He had to walk with leg braces. It's not healthy. There's other, human growth hormone has lots of effects on your body, so many other of his health was impaired. He actually ended up with some blisters from his leg braces, which got infected, and he never recovered. He died at age 22. Yeah, they grew large. Yeah. So that's an excess. That's called gigantism. Is that excess of human growth hormone? All right, another organ is the pancreas. It's an endocrine organ. The pancreas is also a digestive organ, but it has cells in it which have endocrine function. And the pancreas is responsible for producing insulin. So, raise your hand. Can you tell me what does insulin do? That's a hormone.
Oh my God.
What does it do for in our bodies? Elizabeth?
Gives you like sugar or something?
It's related to sugar. It doesn't give you sugar. The effects of insulin is it reduces our blood sugar. So it's important for our blood to have the proper amount of glucose. As you know, which cell process needs glucose?
Respiration.
Respiration. In order to release energy, our cells need glucose. But too much glucose in our blood can be dangerous. Okay, can impair our kidney function, can damage nerves and blood vessels. Too little glucose means our cells don't get enough energy. So we need the proper amount of glucose in our blood. And our pancreas monitors it and adjusts to be sure we do have the proper amount of glucose. And it does that. I'll answer your question in a minute, Nick. So let's just talk about how this feedback system works. It's very similar to the thermostat. So let's say this morning for breakfast you had a big bowl of Cinnamon Toast Crunch. Lots of sugar. In your stomach it got digested and broken down. In your intestines, that sugar, which is now glucose after it's digested, got absorbed into your blood, and the amount of sugar in your blood went way up. Your pancreas is keeping track of that. When it notices the amount of sugar in your blood go up, it starts turning on and producing insulin. So you're going to fill in between these arrows. So it starts producing insulin, and it sends this insulin into your blood. And like you said, what insulin does is it lowers your blood sugar. What it really does is it tells your body cells to take it in. Get it out of your blood and absorb some of it. And so insulin's released into your body and your blood sugar goes down. So as your pancreas is monitoring this, what do you think it does once your blood sugar gets to the proper level? It stops producing insulin. And you go to lunch next period and you buy 3 Rice Krispie treats and you eat them all. Oh, does this happen to certain people here? And so you buy your 3 Rice Krispie treats that are loaded with sugar, and your blood sugar starts to rise. And what happens?
Yeah.
We're back to the beginning. Your pancreas turns on, produces insulin, your blood sugar lowers, and so this repeats over and over again throughout the day, keeping the level of sugar in your blood at the proper level. Now, what was your question?
Okay, so is that so? My dog has diabetes, and we have to give her like an insulin shot, like every time before she eats. Is that what that?
Yeah, that's exactly. So some people and animals, their pancreas does not function properly, and some people don't produce insulin. Their pancreas doesn't make any insulin, and so that's diabetes. And what? So if you know somebody that's diabetic, what do they have to do because their pancreas is not working? Carrot?
They walk around with that little patch on them.
Okay, well, before that, what did you say?
Next their finger and take the blood every time.
So they have to, because their pancreas does not keep track of their blood sugar level, they do it themselves. So they test their blood glucose level by poking their finger using a little meter, and it tells them their blood sugar. And then, like Carrie said, they then need to give themselves insulin to bring their blood sugar back down. Their body themselves insulin. Now they might have like a little pod that gives them insulin through their skin. They may have an insulin pump, a little rectangular thing that has insulin in it, and has a little tube that goes to a little piece that attaches their skin, gives them insulin. They may inject insulin, okay, into their muscle. There's even an insulin inhaler that you inhale the insulin. You can't take insulin though as a pill. There's no oral. It's not like there's a pill you can take to give yourself insulin. It has to go directly into your muscles or your bloodstream. So it has to be an injection or a pump or some other form. And that allows them to control their blood sugar because their pancreas isn't doing it.
I saw this one show, like this really, that lady, she had a dog.
Blood sugar level? And some people though, so that's one type of diabetes that you have, you basically get it when you're a child, you have it your whole life. But also, people can get another type of diabetes for being obese and not eating properly and no exercise. Eventually, it's not that their pancreas doesn't produce that insulin, but their body stops responding to it effectively. And so they have sometimes called adult onset diabetes. And so sometimes they can improve it by losing weight, by exercising, by eating better. But that's sort of two different causes of those, but they're both related to blood sugar. This is just a little video.
Endocrine system. 8 different glands. The endocrine system constantly and quietly does its work, secreting liquid chemical messengers called hormones. These chemicals manage muscle growth and digestion, as well as energy, reproduction, and more. Here in the pancreas, a hormone called insulin is produced and secreted into the blood. The pancreas increases production of insulin. Chemicals in the insulin cause body cells to open up, allowing more glucose from the blood to enter cells, stabilizing the amount of glucose in the blood and maintaining adequate energy in the cells. This is just one example of how the endocrine system regulates a number of important body functions.
Another are the adrenal glands. Ad means near, renal means having to do with the kidneys. And these, the adrenal glands are like little hats on top of each of your kidneys. So these are the kidneys, and on top is this little gland. And what hormone is produced by the adrenal gland? If you look at the name, yes, adrenaline. So they produce a hormone called adrenaline. And the effects of adrenaline, if somebody says you have a burst of adrenaline, what does that mean?
What's like, no. It's like where you, I don't know.
Carrie? Like a burst of energy. Your heart rate increases. Your eyes dilate. You become more alert and more aware. It is what we call the fight or flight response. Is that adrenaline is preparing a person to either fight against a predator or run away. You know, if you're walking through the woods and a cougar jumps out and starts chasing you, your adrenaline's going to be pumping. Your heart's ready. You're going to run away from that thing. You're going to sit there and you're going to fight it. If you're at your friend's house and they hide in the closet and then they pop out and scare you really badly, that feeling you get, your stomach feels weird, your heart starts racing, you start sweating. Those are the effects of adrenaline. And then eventually, once that stimulus is gone, the adrenaline shuts down, and then those effects go away. Another hormone, or another gland, is the thyroid gland. And it is not in your thigh. It's in your neck. It's like we talked about this. It's found in your neck. It's around your trachea, your windpipe. And the thyroid gland is responsible for making hormones that control our metabolism, how our body uses energy. Okay, so it regulates all of the chemical process going on. Some people can have an overactive or underactive thyroid gland. It's called hypothyroidism or hyperthyroidism, depending on which one. And so a person with hyperthyroidism produces too many of these thyroid hormones. All of their body processes are sort of sped up. They burn calories very quickly. They may have trouble keeping weight on. Person producing too little of these hormones, their body processes are slowed down. They don't burn calories very quickly. They may have difficulty maintaining a healthy body weight. They may be overweight. And you can take artificial hormones to help manage this somewhat if a person has an overactive or underactive thyroid gland. Okay?
Doesn't it have something to do with body temperature?
It also affects body temperature. Yeah, a person with hyperthyroidism has a higher body temperature. Yep. Okay, so that's the thyroid gland.
Looks like
Ew, is that the one with the...
Yeah, and then the thyroid gland, as we talked about, goiter. And that's the most common reason for hypothyroid, is underactive thyroid gland, is a lack of iodine. Remember, you need iodine for your thyroid gland to function. And so if you don't have it, it starts to swell up into a big...
That's gross. We have like really much.
Yeah.
All right, so our lastly, all right, Ryan.
Sorry.
Endocrine glands. Gonad's a general word for the endocrine glands that produce sex hormones. And obviously they're different in males and females. Males, the gonads are called testes. And what's the name of the hormone produced?
Estrogen.
In males, the testes produce not estrogen. I'll call you in a minute. Testosterone. So testosterone, so there are male and female what we call sex hormones. And testosterone is the male sex hormone. It's produced in the testes. And, well, the testes also make sperm. We'll get to that when we get to the human reproductive system. But for now, we're more... Testosterone is responsible for what we call male secondary sex characteristics. So obviously, there's differences in anatomy between males and females, but then we have these, what we call secondary sex characteristics. So testosterone, for example, is responsible for a deeper voice, for more body hair, for more muscle mass. That's what the effects of testosterone are. They give what we think of as typical male characteristics. And during puberty, the amount of testosterone increases, causing all of those things to happen. Now, testosterone also is considered a banned substance in athletics because why would people use testosterone? All right?
Never mind.
to sweat and release the heat out of your body.
No.
Get more muscle.
Hello.
That's good.
They shrink when you use steroids.
Yes.
Does it? No.
Sure. You're welcome. Who said it? Increased muscle mass. Is that? Yes. So sometimes people can take artificial testosterone, and because it is related to development of muscle mass, it causes them, it's a steroid, and it causes them to grow larger muscles. And so it's a banned substance, it's considered a performance enhancing drug, and so it's not allowed, but it doesn't mean people don't do it. Also, if you've ever seen, for example, female bodybuilders like on TV, like the serious, like hardcore female bodybuilders, they look very what?
Not attractive.
Very manly. That's because they are most likely taking testosterone to allow them to develop those muscles, and that results in some male characteristics.
Let's go.
why would you?
It'd be like being a she-man.
But also, females do have some testosterone. Even, obviously, all females have small amounts of testosterone, and all males have small amounts of the female sex hormone. Which is what, Tyler?
Estrogen.
Estrogen. The female sex hormone is estrogen. So, males have testes, release testosterone. Females have ovaries, which are responsible for producing eggs, but also for releasing estrogen. Estrogen is the female sex hormone. It's responsible for secondary female sex characteristics. Things like a change in the pelvis, things like breast development, things like the reproductive cycle, the menstrual cycle. All those things are controlled by estrogen as one of the hormones. There's several other hormones also involved, but estrogen is one of the important ones.
We're watching a brain pop.
All right. Any questions about the endocrine system or hormones?